Working now, thanks.
Work now, yeah.
Okay, you got it. I can see it's on.
Sometimes it just takes a while to percolate through the system.
So we'll just wait a minute or two more and then we'll get started.
Has anyone managed to catch some good clear nights lately?
I was out Sunday morning at 4 in the morning. Well, no, 4:45 was moonrise.
Okay,
And it was lovely.
nice.
Did you happen to see Starlink? My brother-in-law said that he saw a string of lights Sunday morning.
No, I didn't.
Well, Randy, as a non-early morning guy, what was lovely about it?
Well, you know what? I really do enjoy being out there by myself in the under the sky. And
You can do that at night, you know.
it's a lovely time.
Good for you, I'm impressed.
I only do it on the weekend.
Yeah, I actually like it because of the changing contrast ratio between the moon and the background sky. You should try it actually. It's kind of interesting because the contrast isn't as stark because you're not looking at blackness and just pure white. So your eyes kind of adjust to this kind of, I don't know, I think I see a little bit more detail myself.
Gary, do you only do evening work even with your fancy telescopes in your ranch?
I have a machine that does it for me in the morning.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's just about time to start, you guys. So why don't we do that? First, I just want to notice that Nick Hammar is with us. Welcome, Nick. We'll be introducing him a little later in the evening, but he's going to be doing some special stuff for the RASC National, and Cattle Point comes into that. So, and the theme tonight is going to be Cattle Point after we go through the usual announcements and various show and tell things that people have. So let's get started. Chris, would you like to do the announcements?
Sure, thank you, John. So just hopefully everybody received the nomination email that was sent out. So it has the slate that we'll be presenting at the AGM. The AGM is 2 weeks tonight in this time slot. So we hope everybody will attend. So we've got that. A reminder that next week is Family Day, so we will not be having Astro Cafe. Have a break for next week. And so we'll be back for our annual general meeting. And a reminder that Lori and I still have some calendars. So if you are still looking for a last minute calendar before it's too far into the year, we do have a few left. So thank you, John.
Okay, that's great. And I have a number of people that have something to show. That includes Lori. Is Lori with us yet? Maybe not. She'll be joining us, I'm quite sure. Randy, you have something, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Margie has something. And Reg. And included in Reg's stuff will be some stuff from Alberta, I think, that Dave Robinson wants to comment on. Anybody else have anything that they want to show or talk about tonight?
I have a few photos of Cattle Point I can show.
Okay, Joe.
I do as well, John.
Sorry, who was that?
David.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, and I have some, so I'll put my own name down.
Okay.
Last. Okay, so let's start off with Randy.
No, let's start off with some real astronomy pictures before I show off my silly stuff.
Okay.
So Joe or David?
You want me to start off with somebody else? I want to do the cattle point stuff
Yeah,
after
no, but
everything
Joe
else.
is doing Cattle Point. And I'm
Oh,
not
is you
gonna go
doing
off on
cattle point
explorers.
too? Oh, okay, so we'll move you
I
down.
am as well, John.
Yeah, Joe, David, John, and Randy, all doing cattle point stuff. Okay. So Margie, you're up.
Okay, may I share the screen? John, may I share the screen?
Yeah, go ahead. You should be able to.
Okay.
Do I have to permit that?
No, I think everybody should be
You
able
should be,
to share.
you should be able to share the screen, Margie.
Okay.
I think as host, John, you can turn somebody's share off, but everybody should be able to share.
Okay. Yeah, that's come up, Margie.
All right.
You can see it.
This was presentation 2 of the Kalamazoo Astronomical Society. So
Okay.
Reg suggested that I just say a little bit something about part 2, which was discovering the night sky. So I thought the easiest way to say something about part 2 is to show you what we went through.
Good.
So do not buy a telescope. That was number 1. Educate yourself. So, figuring out, looking, using books and magazines and the internet. And then Richard Bell, who is the person who is giving the course, went through all of these other things. So parent daily motion, the stars, constellations, asterisms, star names, magnitude scale, monthly all-star maps, planisphere, how to read a star map, using red lights at night. He talked about light pollution, seasonal stargazing, each one of the seasons, a bit about angular astronomy, naked eye astronomy, what you can see with the eye rather than telescopes or binoculars. Talked about eclipses, the different kinds of eclipses, estimating azimuth and altitude. I finally know what azimuth means. And seasonal star maps. So the summer triangle and the normal things that you see. So again, 900 people present. And what Richard Bell is going to do is put the video, the presentations, there will be 5 of them all together. We've had 2. He's going to put them on eventually and let the participants know on the Kalamazoo website so that everybody will have access to them. And that is very exciting because the presentations, the 2 so far, have just been excellent. That's it.
Hey, thanks very much, Margie. It sounds like a wonderful course. Get you off to a good start.
You bet.
Okay, anybody have questions for Margie?
Margie, I just wanted to know when that table of contents was for the entire course or just for the second night?
You're muted, Margie. I wonder if she's hearing you.
Okay.
Margie's been having problems with her connection. I think.
Okay.
Okay.
I watched that particular presentation too, and I think that table of contents was just for that presentation.
Okay.
I know the first one's available on YouTube, and the second one was also very comprehensive.
Wow. That's a lot of information to take in one go.
I took notes.
Okay,
Hi, Dorothy. I'm just wondering what the plan is for the local group, because as Laurie just said, that's a lot, and sort of taking a step at a time if they're really newcomers on it. Miles and I have talked a bit about what we've done with newcomers before, and if they really want to learn about the sky and find their way around, it's important to start at the beginning.
Yeah, Dorothy, it's David. I think that's certainly the approach that we're going to take, but you know, we more than welcome you and Miles to join us when we meet next. We're just going to dabble a little bit. I think it seems to be quite a mix. I think Lori was taking notes, and there's quite a mix there. I mean, there's some people that like kind of intermediate, and there's some people that are absolutely beginners. So I think the approach I would take is have a little bit of something for everybody, you know, in a session. Maybe have something very very introductory, and then have something that's a little bit intermediate. So yeah, I'm just going to let the group run that. I think people are probably already biting into whatever is available, like books and the internet and things like that.
Yeah, well, just sort of questions like, do people know why Sky Map has west to the right side, unlike a terrestrial map? And if you're looking through binoculars or a small non-spotting scope that doesn't turn the image around,
Yeah,
do you know, can you figure out where north is or west so that you can then look at your simple sky map or your complicated?
There's some very basic stuff. In fact, I was even thinking for the next time we meet, I would just do something like field of view from the point of view of both naked eye, binocular, and telescope, because they mean different things, and we use different tools to do that. So I think that might be an interesting place to start.
Yeah,
scale is different.
Yeah, but orientation is, we hope we'll always have some gadgets around and electricity around, not just a flashlight, not just a dark sky, and a printed map that we can look at. But we may not.
Maybe we should have.
It's understanding how the sky moves that can be really exciting. And I mean, and we all know that sometimes people who know a lot, have learned a lot, but have been relying on their apps to tell them what they're looking at or where things are, and they're lost if all they have is the sky, and that's sad.
Yeah, I welcome you and Miles to join us. I'm sure there's lots of insights for people that have been observing the sky for a long time. There's plenty of insights.
Yeah, the basic planisphere that we hand out at the fair is probably as good a tool as anything for orientation to the sky.
That's very true, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for that, all of you. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to suggest that Reg does his Sky News thing. Then I'm going to ask Lori to introduce Nick Hammar. And then we're going to do the stuff on Cattle Point. So, Reg, could you do your thing next?
I'll try. Can anybody see a PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay.
No, it's just the Zoom.
Oh, maybe it's just the Zoom. Yeah.
Okay, just a second.
You might have.
I'm going to stop the share and start it again. Sorry, folks. Can anybody see a PowerPoint presentation yet? Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
How about now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay, this was oh, pardon me. I wasn't. You didn't want me to do Cattle Point yet. You wanted me to.
Not yet.
Okay. I'm just going to stop the share again. My apologies, folks.
That's okay. I thought you could just do the usual.
The usual banter. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll try this again. Third time lucky. And try this. And I'm going to go to Astro Cafe for tonight. A number of things that are interesting. First of all, the Vera Rubin Observatory, which used to be called the Large Synoptic Telescope down in Chile. There's going to be a presentation given by the person who is the Deputy Director of Construction of this telescope. And if anybody knows anything about this Rubin telescope, it is a really exotic piece of glass. And so I think that you would really find this fascinating. So this is a link that Karoon gave me for their meeting on 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday the 10th. So it's there. Give that a try. And here's a bit of a write-up about it. So that's going to be very very good. Then the other thing is, and I don't know if Dave Robinson wants to jump into this, but our remarkable Edmonton RASC Abdur took another picture of the International Space Station and proved that it is no fluke. And he has just developed an absolutely fabulous YouTube tutorial on how to do this. And it's in 3 parts. One part is to how he finds out, gets your telescope ready to be in the right position to take this, know about the exposure, get that all set up with his camera. And then he's got a terrific thing where he goes through 3 pieces of software that he uses to process this information. And even if you didn't want to use it for the ISS, this is really helpful for doing planetary work or anything else. So, and he's a very good speaker and good instructor. So I encourage people to give this thing a try here. And congratulations to him for a great thing. Then there is another Edmonton rascal, Warren Finley. I'll try and see if I can show this. He got this beautiful picture at minus 39 degrees of an ice sculpture with an aurora behind him. So top marks for that as well.
Just a word about Warren. I just was talking with earlier, and I've known Warren for quite some time. He's been a long-term member of the Edmonton RASC. He's what I would call a Renaissance man. He's a distinguished professor in mechanical engineering who works with aerosol delivery of medication to patients. He's also written a book on the 500 deep sky objects and data on them. He plays the bagpipes, which he can be forgiven because he also plays the oboe. And he was the fellow that got us, me and Roman, started on developing the observing site out at Black Nugget Lake, which is eventually going to lead to having the 32-inch telescope in it. He's quite a character. We'll probably see him out here from time to time because his mom and dad, who used to run a wild bird general store in Edmonton, they've moved out here. So we'll probably see him from time to time. Maybe get him for an Astro Cafe one night. And he's famous for doing these skyscape photographs with sky in the background, very interesting objects in the foreground.
We certainly got it there, Dave. Thanks for the background on Warren. Another thing that happened the other week was that Chris Gaynor made a mention about a Jet Propulsion Laboratory documentary series. And I gave it a try. And here's the page it goes to. And there's about 12 or 15 episodes here. And I warn you, these are absolutely fascinating history of rockets and spacecraft and things like that, and very binge worthy. And I stayed up until 2 in the morning watching a couple of the episodes. So you better watch out. So click on this link with caution. And thanks, Chris, for letting us know about it. It's really outstanding, and there's a lot of detail that I don't think it's ever been exposed before, but it's all produced by the JPL people, so they have the inside track in that. Did you want to say any more words on that, Chris?
Reg, I want to say I also got caught by it, and my screen background right now is a screen capture from the moon one. I bet Chris could say what that's a picture of.
Landing
Now the moon one, I think I looked at that a long time ago. I actually got a few of them. I went down to JPL while I was working on my book, and I got actual, like files of the first half dozen of them. And I think, so it's been a while since, but when they posted the whole lot, and including, a half dozen I hadn't seen, yeah, I killed a lot of time doing that. So was it a ranger or a surveyor or something like
Surveyor.
that? Yeah. And yeah. Oh, just for a second, while I have the floor, I posted this on Facebook today, but we have a lot of people who have backgrounds in Edmonton, including myself. And it's just been announced that the team formerly known as the Eskimos has put out 7 names, which they're considering for their new team name. And one of them is Eclipse.
Interesting.
So I hope our friends in Edmonton get on that.
All the rest of the names suck.
Yeah, they're sort of typical sports names.
I guess this Edmonton invasion has been taking place a lot longer. I thought it started with Dave Robinson, but apparently not.
My parents invaded in '75, so, and I was.
John was in Edmonton for a long time. The first RASC center I belonged to was the Edmonton Center, but it's so long ago, there's hardly anybody there who has any knowledge of that now. So anyway.
I just wanted to go on to a thing. This week is Weekly Women in Science, and there's a presentation on the 10th and another one as well, February 10th in Montreal, and another one that is a presentation on the 11th. And it might be interesting, and there's links to that. So just check them out. Because it's really interesting. I was reading New York Times earlier this week, and they had a thing on exoplanets, and they made a point of view that 1/3 of the astronomers involved in exoplanets are women, or yes, women, I think is the word to use. And they are making very good inroads into the field of astronomy, and it's really encouraging to see. So that is that. The other thing is that next week we're not going to have a Astro Cafe, but we will. It will be Mars Fever coming up because we've got the Perseverance spacecraft supposed to be landing on Mars on the 18th, and these times are listed. If you go to NASA TV, they've got, and go to their schedule, they've got a list of all of the talks that are going on at that time. It looks like the actual coverage is going to be a lot of stuff beforehand, sort of like talking about the previous Super Bowl, but finally the main event starts at this would be at 11:15 Pacific Daylight Time, and the landing is going to take place a little bit later. So it's going to be very interesting. So I encourage you to go to NASA TV and look at their schedule, and it will be great. And we'll be able to talk a bit about Mars at the annual general meeting, which takes place on Monday the 22nd. And one other thing about that, if you cannot make it to that session, we need at least 25 people to establish a quorum for that meeting. So if you can't make it, if you could send me a note saying that you would like a proxy for that, it'll help us to go ahead. So keep that in mind. But I do hope that you'll make the annual general meeting on Monday. So with that, I'll stop the share and turn it back to you, John.
Okay, thanks very much, Rich. And Lori, if you're with us, would you like to, I think you've got something you want to say, but also I want you to introduce Nick Hammar for the group.
Okay.
He is with us.
Hi, everybody. I think I'll introduce Nick first. I have not met Nick before, like 5-10 minutes ago when he was on the screen. Hello, Nick. Nice to see you. Jenna Hines, who you are know from having had her online here and works at the national office, asked me whether or not I had any information about Cattle Point, because they're putting together for April, they're putting together a program on dark skies, and said, hey, I know you've got one of the very first urban sky star parks in Canada, and do you have any information and pictures and videos? And so I threw out the email to everybody and invited Nick along. And so Nick is the environmental outreach intern and for the national office right now. I'm going to let him talk a little bit more about himself, but he also lives in Victoria. So I'm hoping that he will be a little bit more of a presence. I'm putting you on the spot, Nick, for possibly coming out to some of our other things that we do here and being a part of our Victoria Center work that we do. So I'm going to turn it back over to Nick, and he can maybe tell us a little bit more about the programming that he is looking for Cattle Point. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Lori. Yeah, so just to mention about myself, I studied at Ivesic, I studied astronomy, and I heard the name Karun mentioned before. I assume you're talking about Karun Thanjavur, which is interesting because I had classes with him when I was at Ivesic, so it's interesting. But anyways, yeah, I work at the national office for the RASC, so working with Jenna, for example, but my role is more focused on the light pollution portfolio of the RASC national office. So I've been working a lot with the National Light Pollution Abatement Council, or committee, I should say. And one of the programs that we had an idea of doing was for Dark Sky Week, which is in April, that we wanted to take the opportunity to promote all of the, or as many as we can, the dark sky sites that the RASC has designated across Canada. And Cattle Point is one of those such sites. Well, my role is heavily focused on the dark sky site program of the RASC, and we're trying to kind of reinvigorate and restart it because it's kind of fallen by the wayside over the years. So, and a lot of that is just because the national office hasn't had people available to work on it. So what we want to do with this program is kind of, draw more public interest and attention to the sites. And so, for example, with Cattle Point, what we are hoping to get is photos or video from people like you, and that would be going into a short kind of like photo collage type thing that we would be putting on social media to promote sites like Cattle Point.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Lori and Nick. So now we're going to get into stuff that people are going to show about Cattle Point. Joe, can we start with you?
Let me see if I can get the share working.
Just while Joe's doing that, Chris Gaynor shared an item in the chat that the United Arab Emirates probe Hope arrives in Mars orbit tomorrow. So there is a link if you want to make note of that from the chat.
And there's also the Chinese probe, which is getting there into Mars orbit in a couple of days. I don't see any coverage listed there. And it's going to be in orbit for a while, and then in Mars, in May, it's going to drop something down onto the surface. So that's something, 2 things to look out for this week from Mars, and then next week is the Perseverance. So I'll be quiet now.
Okay, so is everybody seeing Mount Baker?
Yep.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So I took this photograph of Mount Baker while I was waiting for the total lunar eclipse, which happened September 27th, 2015. I have visited Cattle Point quite a number of times, as early as 2003, even before it was a designated dark sky site. But I just decided to pick this event as one to highlight tonight. So while I was waiting, we had a wonderful display from Mount Baker from Cattle Point, looking across the Sailor Sea. Now let's see if I can get this short slideshow to move. And so the eclipsed moon eventually rose from the muck and really thrilled everyone at the site. And it was a big event, as you'll see in just a minute. I took a couple of photographs of the crowd. There's just a few of the people, and that's looking over the beautiful sea, and as the moon rose, and in a partial eclipse phase here. And I, in my observing log, I said it was me and about 4,000 of my closest friends at this park, because there was a lot of people there, even more than this photograph shows.
Will that do, Nick?
Yeah, I guess if I can speak again for a minute. Sorry, I guess I should have explained a bit more that what our goal with this social media project is to draw public attention to the sites, but kind of focusing on that we want to protect them, right? And the importance of thinking about light pollution and why it's important to reduce it as much as possible. And so what we want to do with the photos that we're going to be using on social media is we want to focus on the sites themselves and what makes each of the sites unique, and what to expect when you go to that site. Because obviously right now it's not necessarily a great time for people to be visiting. And that's something that we definitely will need to touch on with our social media campaign when we run it. But in general, we want to be showing people what these sites look like and what to expect when they get there. And as a last note, that I'm also working on the national RASC website right now to retool it a bit, specifically the light pollution section. And so we're going to be making a page for each of the dark sky sites. So Cattle Point will have its own page, for example, and some of the photos and videos that we get from doing this will be featured on the website as well, on these new write-up pages that we're making.
Yeah, I was asking you just kind of as the picture that had all of the people there for the eclipse. I thought that was a really good one to show the what use that park makes. So sorry, Joe, I interrupted.
Not a problem. Yeah, we can
Actually,
certainly,
well-
we can supply more photographs to serve whatever purpose Nick decides he needs and what perspective this promotion is going to take. We can even take aerial photographs or whatever he would like of that area delineated, or I'm not sure what you want, but you can certainly coordinate with us and let us know.
Thank you so much.
So do you want things like where the parking lot lights are and how they're shielded and things like that too?
No, that's no.
No?
We're mostly
Okay.
looking to like drum up public interest, that kind of
Right.
thing.
There's only one light on that site now, and the municipality's turned it off. It used to be one street light over top of the boat launch ramp. Several years ago, it was lit up all night, but the last couple of times I was out, that light was turned off.
Mhm.
There are no lights on that site.
Yeah, but the
And
light pollution comes from the cars that are constantly driving in.
True. We certainly got blinded the last time you and I were out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Dorothy. I'm sorry I didn't get back earlier. I saw the call from Laurie, I guess, but got tied up with other things. But I was involved in setting up the park, and I think I may have some early photographs. But in any case, certainly the signs, the way it was set up, and events in the park itself, because Joe, I remember that scene that you showed us, but technically speaking, I'm not sure that rock outcropping is in the dark sky area, but that's it's close. But there's certain, as far as the absence of the boat landing light, I was interested to hear that it's off, because I haven't been down there since to notice that lately, but I fear that might be because of COVID, because I believe that boat landings at night from abroad are frowned on, and that may be why it's off, but it would be great if it is off permanently. John will remember, we had problems discussing that, hoping to have it off when we met with the Oak Bay Council. So
I've got something to show on that later. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Okay, Joe, did you get a chance to finish what you wanted to do?
Yes, thanks.
Okay, so David, you're next. I've got David and then Randy and then Reg and then myself.
Yeah, just give me a chance to get my share going. So I echo Joe's usage of the site. I mean, I used it well before it was deemed a urban space or urban dark sky space. Certainly a favorite area for me for eclipses and even moonrises. It's just a perfect horizon for that. The other thing in my memory now is I often remember the times when we were looking out where we were waiting for the eclipse and always wondering who was the first one who's going to see it, because we'd often have kind of murky areas. But it's a wonderful sight in that respect with the water. The other thing I wanted to remark was the other thing I wanted to remark was the fact that it's actually a good area for the ecliptic as well, and also for the Milky Way. So that's where I think it is not a bad site, but there is still some light, and I'm hoping actually maybe with that light being out that it won't be that way anymore. But it just depends. Sometimes you get glow from the city, sometimes not. So it really depends on the night. That's all I wanted to show.
Thanks, David. Randy.
Okie dokie. So I'm going to show off pictures that Nick certainly is not going to share. This is from the inaugural Transboundary Fireworks Festival. And it was started with this email from my predecessor as vice president. I'll read it out. Hello, rascals. Are you ready for something totally different? How about joining us at Cattle Point Urban Dark Sky Park to enjoy the 4th of July fireworks? Did you know that one of the largest July 4th fireworks displays in Washington State takes place just 29 kilometers from Cattle Point on Lopez Island? By the unaided eye, the spectacle is not impressive, but through your astronomical telescope, the sight can be breathtaking, even if the firework appears upside down. Yeah, so the sound of the explosions persists for over a minute after the fireworks end as the shockwave traverses Harris Strait. And I remember we were working out how long it was between the sight and the sound, and it was seconds. So we hope to see you there to enjoy the inaugural Transboundary Festival, Fireworks Festival. If you don't have a scope, bring some binoculars. It would be a shame to let those high quality photons go to waste. That's my favorite line of the email. Anyway, I took some very bad pictures with my phone, and but it was just a super night. If anybody can recognize who's there, I'm going to be pretty impressed. Can you recognize anybody?
Chris Burse.
Is that Chris?
Yeah.
I might recognize the oh, and that's the
Chris.
the Pasco telescope. It's so long, I can recognize that. So that was Reg's, and I own it now. And then I took one flash picture, and the timing was exquisite. Okay, that's my story.
Thanks, Randy. I think, Reg, you're next.
Okay, I'll attempt to share the screen. Find the PowerPoint. So regarding the inaugural Transboundary Fireworks Festival, it turns out that July the 4th was the birthday of Henrietta Leavitt. So we renamed it to the Henrietta Leavitt Memorial Skywatch.
You know, there was something funnier than what was in that email. I can't remember that.
Yeah, well, but we did that afterwards. So I just want to go through here. On January 20th, 2019, we had a supermoon, we had a blue moon, and we had a wolf moon. And so this got some attention in the media. And so a lot of media hype about this, drew a lot of people out to Cattle Point on a January evening, and it was a beautiful evening. I'm just going to show, I don't have the beautiful foreground shots that people like David Lee are famous for, but these are actually, I'm just going to go through the eclipse itself, but these are pictures of various times going through. You can see the shadow going across the moon there. And what happened when this happened, about here when we got into the totality section of it here, and it turned kind of copper, there were spontaneous wolf howls all over the place. There must have been maybe 400 people there. It was just a great evening. It was a joyous occasion. And so it was just a beautiful night. And I have many happy memories of this whole thing. So at any rate, I was there from the get-go, and I was the last guy out of the parking lot. And when I had to leave, I had to scrape ice off my car windscreen, which in Victoria is terrible. But the poor souls from Edmonton will weep at the difficult circumstances we were in. At any rate, it's a great place. I just will say that we tried to have a lunar observing event just before celebration of the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 landing. And it was an international moon night. And what we found was it was too much cloud there to see the moon, but people could see Mount Rainier. But the beauty of it is that we had a stream of tour buses coming in, and they were dumping people off in loads of 50 people at a time. And they all came parading around and looking through the telescope, and they were all really having a great time. And I think just as a wonderful way to, to really have an industrial strength outreach event, if we could have it timed later in the season where we might have some visual targets in the night sky and all of these bus loads coming by, we could really get up our Galileo moments.
I will add one caution here. Both of these events, Nick, you should know that the Oak Bay Police took a fairly hostile interest in our ad hoc events, shall we say. You know, I think we've learned some valuable lessons about letting them know what's happening down there when we expect any crowds. I'll leave it at that.
Can I say about the police, they stayed to watch the Henrietta Leavitt Memorial Sky Watch, but they did not take any donuts that I offered them. So there you go.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Rich. I'm going to share the screen now. I've got something to show you too. Okay, if all worked well, you should be seeing my screen, and now you should be seeing a PowerPoint thing, which I'm just going to start. Can you see something called Astronomy at Cattle Point?
Yes.
Okay. So astronomy has been going on at Cattle Point for a long time. Some of the other people who've spoken mentioned this. My first lunar eclipse session there was in 2008. So this goes back a while. And this is a bunch of people just kind of waiting for that to happen. And then a little bit later, I got what is one of my favorite eclipse pictures. I call it Ghosts, because the moon is eclipsed up here. There's some people, a little family, and they were moving, and they kind of look like ghosts in the picture. That's kind of neat. And listening to those kids talk about the moon and how excited they were was quite exciting. This is an early picture from 2007, long before it became an urban star park. Joe Carr on the left and Bruno Quenneville on the right, setting up. And this is back on the rocks behind really to the west of the parking lot, where we used to set up all the time. We set up there largely to hide ourselves from that light that people were talking about before, because in those days that light was incredibly bright. And so they're setting up here. And then in January 2013, we were getting geared up to try for getting an urban star park. And this letter is to Mark Bowman, who is the person that was part of our group at that time, who was one of the primary people moving this urban star park forward. And he just got confirmation in this letter from Oak Bay Council that we were going to be invited to address the need at their Recreation Commission meeting. And Mark invited a few of the rest of us to come along to help support the case. And it was interesting that people hearing us had no idea that the place was being used for astronomy, but they were very excited. And I think we got unanimous support. And then when they took their recommendation to council, the same thing happened. They got unanimous support. So, whoops. The next thing was a letter addressed to Mr. Dick of the RASC, Robert Dick, where we presented a proposal and whoops. I'm going too fast here. Yeah, we presented a proposal, and after it was considered by RASC, we got the designation that we were looking for. This is information on a picture that Joe Carr just took a few days ago. This is the back of the sign, I believe, Joe, is that correct?
No, actually, it's the front.
Oh,
there's two signs there, as it turns out. I was mistaken before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the front.
It's the front. Okay, so anyway, this is the sign that shows the Star Park, and it's kind of a neat sign because it shows some really useful information about the spring, summer, fall, and winter skies. And there's a nice little write-up on it about the importance of dark skies. So this picture or similar ones of that sign would be perhaps useful in the stuff that you put together, Nick. I don't know.
John, where's that located in the park, that sign?
You know where the little parking lot is across from the boat launch?
Yeah.
It's just if you're standing at the ocean side looking backwards through the parking lot, it's on the right-hand side. It's quite a lovely sign.
There are three signs along there. There's the First Nations sign and a Oak Bay's sign about the cattle point before.
If I could ask a question, John.
So this is a picture that was taken after it was declared to be a dark sky preserve, and this is actually looking out over the light dome of the city. So this is looking to the west, and one of the comets, one of the Pan-STARRS comets was in the sky, and up above it is you can just see a smudge of Andromeda. And here's a more recent picture. This is from 2016, still not all that recent, just showing not bad sky in spite of the light. And I want to say a little bit about this light. There's an interesting story about it. At that earlier lunar eclipse that Joe and David were talking about, the mayor of Oak Bay showed up. And at that time, the light, this light on the pole here, was far brighter than it is in this picture. And he saw that light and he recognized that we'd been telling him that light was too bright. And he immediately took steps to get it dimmed. And this is it after it was dimmed. It's still a fairly bright light, but it's not one that spoils the sight particularly. Even nicer if it's turned off, of course. And that's all that I wanted to show, so I will just stop the share.
Nick, you had a question to John?
Yeah, so that was actually really interesting. So thank you for sharing that. I wanted to ask about, so there were two people's names that I saw. There was Mark Bowman and Nelson Walker, who was the president at that time. Is that right?
Yes.
I imagine neither of those people are part of the center anymore.
Yeah, they're both members.
Nelson Walker is, yes.
And Mark is as well.
Okay.
Is Mark still a member?
Yes, but he does live in the Eastern United States, so he's not an active member.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering, because part of what we're working on is creating a Google Drive library of resources, including LPA articles and bylaws and that kind of thing, and also putting together an archive of all of the information on the dark sky sites that we have. So that includes their application documents and that kind of thing, like all of the documents that the RASC office wants to hold on to. And so I was wondering if either of those people or maybe anybody else in this call knows where those files would be in terms of like the certificate when the site was designated, or like official letters and communication between National and Victoria Center, or things like that that were exchanged when the during the process of the designation.
We can either digitize the paper copies if I assume we still have them. Probably Laurie Roche might have them stored away somewhere. We also have Google Drive. We use Google Drive for our electronic document archive, so I can look in there and see if it's there, but that's pretty early. I don't know that we would have that in digital form, but we can put it in digital form for
I
you.
have, sorry, this is Dorothy again. I have our application. I'm quite sure I have it on my old computer. I was on the national committee at the time, so I watched it and helped it get through, but it was a very good proposal because we knew what we were doing. So I could probably pull that up if that would be interesting, Nick.
The application document is actually the only thing that we do have for Cattle Point. So
I probably have some other information from back then, but
yeah. But
Nick, and I have a terribly bad habit that I don't throw emails away, and I've got a bundle of emails that were flying back and forth while we were getting ready for this. The two most useful ones are the ones that I showed tonight, but there are others. And I'm guessing that other people will have stuff too, like Dorothy, Laurie, Nelson Walker, and Mark Bowman may well have it, and he can be contacted for sure.
I was just going to say, I talked to Mark on an email maybe a year ago, and we had a nice conversation on email. I'm sure that if you asked Nick, I'm sure that he wouldn't mind, taking a bit of time to talk to you. He may not have the documents anymore with him because he's now down in the States, but he would certainly be able to tell you about some of the things that occurred. So
yeah, he would definitely be worth talking to because he put an enormous effort into it, as did a number of other people. But Mark was sort of the spearhead for getting this through.
John and Nick, would the municipality not have all those documents? Would Oak Bay not have all those documents?
Oh,
I'm not sure, but we figured that it'd be easier to get it from the center rather than internally, exactly. The emails back and forth is not something we need to track that much, but just the key official documents we were looking to fill out our library, because right now the application is the only thing we have. And so their certificate, there's usually a notice letter that came with the certificate that you had been designated, and then also letters of support that would have been part of the application, hopefully, that we're missing. And also you mentioned that there's only one light on the site, and then now that's been removed or turned off. But so like information like that on the lighting, the current lighting of the site is also really important as well, or interesting.
Well, there's a website, Dark. I'm trying to Google it here. It's cattlepointstarpark.org. Who maintains that site? Is that maintained by the city of?
No, that's not an official site. That's created by a private individual who we don't associate with necessarily. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, a rogue.
There's a story there we won't go into right now.
Okay, well, but I was on that site a while ago, but I think I can't access it because I disabled Adobe Flash, which is no longer supported. So that could be why haven't been able to. But anyway, I recall there was some good information about the history and.
Yeah, there was lots of people involved, and some people went off in different directions. And that was one direction that happened.
Nick, I think that in order to keep this going, may I suggest that anybody that has any information, like documents or letters or anything that they think that would be good, could they give them to you? Could they send them right to you, like, rather than trying to go through a bunch of different people? It goes directly to you. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, for sure. And also the images that you guys have been presenting right now, you could send those as well at the same time. That would be great. I can put my email in the chat right there. That's my RASC email. So if you wanted to send me, yeah, like Laurie was saying, any of the documents that you might have, or yeah, the images that you had just been showing us right now, that'd be great.
John and Nick, would it be useful to create a new collection on Folio and have us dump stuff in there?
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yeah, our Zenfolio site houses many of our images. I'm just wondering if we can't just create a new grouping and then you could look for them there. If somebody wants to set that one up.
If you prefer to do it that way, then
well,
yeah.
then you would avoid having to get a whole bunch of stuff in your email, right? You have one place to put it.
Okay.
That might be an easier way.
Yeah,
you can download them from there.
Yeah.
So I'll create a collection and send you a URL to it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sounds good. By the way, there's one story that you're interested in light pollution. I can tell you one source of light pollution that used to occur at Cattle Point, and I don't know that I've seen it since it's been declared as an urban star park, but it might be still happening. Back in the old days, when we would set up, we would be back in the bushes, and we were there in order to hide from that light that we've talked about. Well, that's the same area that a certain number of people who were selling things that they weren't supposed to sell, like illicit drugs, would be back in that region also. So it wasn't uncommon to have the Oak Bay police car come through, and it usually happened just when I was in the middle of a long sequence of exposures to get a nice dark sky picture. All of a sudden there would be a light shining in my eyes that was beyond blinding, because when you're dark adapted and the light on the police car is shone in your eye, it's disconcerting. And I can remember screaming at the policeman, turn that whatchamacallit light off. And they did. And then they would ask what we were doing there. And we told them, and the next thing I knew, the guys were over looking through the telescope and enjoying the scene. And after that, they were very nice to us, at least for a while after that, until they got new crews out.
One thing I wanted to mention as well, that was part of your presentation, John, you mentioned the signs there, that there's the one you showed and maybe two others. And yes, as somebody had mentioned, it'd be really, really useful if there were images of those signs that somebody had.
Nick, they actually might be on Zenfolio. We'd have to have a look, but I think somebody actually photographed the signs at one point.
We'll have to do a search because there's so much stuff on Zenfolio, sometimes it's hard to find.
Who designed the pretty sign?
But it's together out.
I did. Dorothy spent
It was
many
a really-
hours over it. We had a lot. It was so frustrating because they wouldn't commit to whether we could have two sides or one. It ended up being one, but I had material for two signs plus. People who know me know I overdo the images.
Dorothy, do you have the original artwork in the files?
I think probably on my old computer, yeah.
Oh, okay. That would be a better thing than just photographing it even.
I think I have a copy of that.
Yeah, one needs to get it so you don't get reflections, but which is possible, depends on what time of day the photograph is taken of the whole sign. But yeah,
But you have the original artwork, that's even cleaner.
well, I think, Nick, I think from what you said, and as connection with the Light Pollution Abatement Committee National, the important part of it, and I've seen people read it, and people I've talked to when I've been out there who have looked at the sign, read it, and took it in, was the description on the left about the importance of the dark sky, the absence of light for a healthy environment, healthy Earth. And along with it, of course, we get a dark sky for observing. But I mean, that's the critical issue for all these dark sky sites and dark sites that, what is it, the dark preserves, urban preserves, or not necessarily urban, that aren't for observing, but just for protecting dark. So that's certainly something that should be included in this. I'm sure Nick would have that.
Does anybody else have any recollections of doings at Cattle Point that you want to talk about?
Yes, John, I have one.
Okay.
I remember one time, and I know that it was I don't think it was a full eclipse, a full lunar eclipse. It was possibly a partial one. And it was, I'm sorry, I don't know the date, but Sid and I were at the site, and it was very cool and very windy. And we were there. I remember Sid was there from the very, very beginning. And by the end, we were the only two people left on the site. And Sid was absolutely bound and determined that he was going to stay there to the very, very bitter end of it. And I remember being colder than I have ever been in my life, trying to go back, trying to sneak back into my car in order to warm up just slightly so that I wouldn't freeze to death out there. We did have people come by. I'm sorry, I can't remember a date at all, but it was at least maybe 8 to 10 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
It was at least that much. But boy, I remember those really windy days. And I know we've been out there at other times when it's been very windy on that site. And you don't stay long sometimes because it's so windy.
Right.
Yeah.
Anybody else have anything they want to add?
I've kind of a question. I don't know whether it'd be interesting for this, but we were asked by I think it was the McGill Alumni Association to host sky gazing down there when they were meeting in Victoria. And I'm sure there are photographs from that. It was an event, and there were a lot of telescopes set up. Probably are some pictures. Because it's a public place, although they were mostly McGill people, there were other members of the public who came around at the time. I don't know whether pictures from that or that kind of event would be appropriate for this.
I still
have a question.
McGill hat.
Sorry?
I still have my McGill hat that I was given on that day. Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know about that one. One thought that I had when I was thinking about doing this is that right now it is not the easiest thing to use the VCO site that we have because of the COVID restrictions. But Cattle Point has lots of room to spread out, and there are no restrictions on the use of it for astronomy. So maybe if this COVID thing goes on a whole lot longer, we should make a little bit more use of Cattle Point this spring. It's a nice site.
Is that Cattle Point site registered or associated in any way with the International Dark Sky Association?
I don't know. Nick, do you know?
As far as I know, no, I don't think so.
Okay.
Nick, are any of the Canadian sites listed that way?
As part under the IDA, you mean?
Yeah.
I do know there's at least some that are like split between the Canadian and American border that are, at least the American section is registered with the IDA.
Okay.
Nick, is there a distinction between Urban Star Park and Dark Sky Preserve? There must be.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there is. The Canadian Guidelines for Outdoor Lighting that was written by Robert Dick kind of breaks that down, but basically there's 3 designations. There's Dark Sky Preserve, Nocturnal Preserve, and Urban Star Park.
Okay.
And basically Dark Sky Preserve is the darkest, and Urban Star Park rather is the brightest, if you want to put it that way, but that's because they're usually within cities. So. And in the middle, nocturnal preserves are usually not open to the public. They're kind of in the middle, but yeah.
Well, aren't they? Oh, sorry, Nick, can I ask a question about that? My understanding is that the nocturnal preserves, that was the term I was trying to remember, are done, they can be designated in a park or close to an urban area. They have no light pollution, but there's no requirement that there be any public observing. So they would be open to people to go, but not organize public events, whereas urban sky parks do have a requirement that there will be regular, semi-regular events for the public. So
yeah, that's right. Nocturnal preserves usually have less outreach events and are more focused on just the ecological value.
Ecological. And I doubt this has changed. The IDA requirements for lighting were not as stringent as the RASC, which is why back when I was on the national committee, we all agreed to sort of not join forces and to stick with our more stringent requirements for shielding and lighting. And I don't know how that may have changed. I know IDA, I think, has changed maybe more than the RASC in terms of lighting specifications. But that's why someone asked about whether these were IDA as well. And that's why they're not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. I think the differences still remain quite a bit. Like you mentioned, that the IDA is a little bit less stringent.
Okay, anybody else have anything they want to contribute before we call it the night?
Back to that rogue site, there was reference on that, if I recall, to some relative distance markers for Mercury, Venus at other locations in Victoria and on Vancouver Island. Is that someone else's initiative, or is that related to the Dark Sky Park?
I don't know.
I think that was someone else's.
Yeah, as I recall, that was the person who operated that website wanted to do what is it called, an orrery? I never say that right. Basically, on scale. So there was an artwork purchased to put at Cattle Point, I think, to be the sun, and then there were going to be markers put at other locations on a scale.
Yes, like Mercury at Willows Beach, and then there's something at maybe it's Venus at Gonzales Point, or it was another, and then I think Jupiter's out at Tofino, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't tracked those things down. Have others seen them, like the markers?
Well, the first one was presented at one of our council meetings when I was president, I think, or no, I think latterly maybe when Sherry was still president. But as it wasn't, our thing to do, we didn't pursue putting it there. We suggested that Oak Bay be approached, and if they wanted to build a plinth to put this particular piece on, to do it. I've never actually gone back to look and see if that happened.
It seemed completely inappropriate for an urban sky park. As far as I know, none of those, whatever you call them, have been erected anywhere.
Okay, well, thanks everybody that contributed tonight. And Nick, I hope that was a bit helpful for you. And Joe is going to get a site together that'll have lots of materials on it for you. So thanks very much, everybody. I think we'll call it a night. Good night.
Hey, John. Thanks.
Thank you. And we'll see you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks from now. Yeah.